Hey guys, welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Binner and Comic Drake to give our predictions of what's coming up in Friday's Pokémon Direct. So, let's get started. Alright guys, so we were pretty much blindsided this morning, I guess as we are by most Direct announcements, but they announced not a Nintendo Direct, but a Pokémon Direct. It's coming up on Friday, pretty early in the morning, at least if you're on the West Coast, and it's apparently only going to be 5 minutes long according to the Japanese Twitter account. So, I thought we'd do what we always do, and give our predictions of what's going to happen here. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think we'll get huge news from this, or do you think, are you expecting something a little bit lower in excitement?
If they're doing a Pokemon-focused Direct and it's only 5 minutes, that one announcement is going to be a huge announcement. Yeah. There's no question in my mind.
Well, honestly, if it is going to be 5 minutes, I mean, obviously this Direct is going to be most of what we've already heard before. You know, Detective Pikachu, Pokémon Tournament, maybe like some other stuff about Pokemon Shuffle or maybe Pokemon Picross. You know, just the basic stuff that we've either already heard about or that, you know, small stuff that nobody's going to care about. But I'm assuming that, like Derek said, if it is going to be this short, whatever big announcement they're going to have, which there's obviously going to be at least one big announcement, it would probably take up most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, the funny thing is, like, 5 minutes isn't really a Direct. That is a trailer.
Yeah,
so, and
a trailer, you say?
I do say trailer, Drake. With that said, I went back and looked at how they announced Pokemon X and Y. And they did that also in a Pokemon Direct that was 11 minutes long. However, 7 minutes of those was a retrospective, and only 4 minutes of that was actually pertained to Pokemon X and Y. So 5 minutes actually is more than enough time for them to fully cover, or maybe not fully cover, but to at least reveal this game. And maybe touch on a few other things too. Like they might, this would be a perfect time to touch on the Pokemon Virtual Console games coming out very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And
that day, yes.
Oh, that day even, yeah, exactly.
next day. That day for Japan, next day for us.
Right.
But yeah.
So I could totally see them doing that. And also, I believe the 5 minute time limit also might only apply to Japan. So I could see our Direct maybe being a few minutes longer potentially because they already have Detective Pikachu over there, and it's possible they could spend some time on that perhaps, as well as maybe Pokemon Tournament.
Yeah, I think that's very logical. I hope we get a Detective Pikachu announcement because, playing a little bit of the Japanese version, it's a fun game. It's a simple game, but it is a lot of fun, and I'd love to see them bring it over here and have something a little bit different for us. So I can see them spending maybe a minute or two showing off Detective Pikachu, maybe displaying the English voice acting and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think ours will be that much longer, but maybe enough to introduce those other Pokemon games.
Well, let's also not forget that this is a huge anniversary of Pokemon, and I guarantee they're going to do another kind of retrospective, or at least a look back, which would also fill up quite a bit of time.
Yeah, it definitely would.
In all honesty, based on what Andre said, probably about 3 minutes of that is probably going to be just retrospective and showing how the games have evolved. So I guess the big question here for this big announcement is it going to be Pokemon Z, or is it going to be 7th Gen?
So I'm throwing my hat in the ring into the Pokemon Z camp. I have a feeling, I think it's going to be a spin-off title like they've almost always done, or whatever they call those third versions of games in those series. And I think the next generation will wait until the next hardware.
Well, you're going to get a lot of people saying that, like, oh, but they announced this mechanical legendary, so it's going to have to be 7th Gen. But let's also not forget that when Munchlax was first introduced in Destiny Deoxys, I believe that was the one, that was right as Emerald was about to come out, and everybody thought that at least Munchlax was going to be in Emerald. So it is possible that it is just going to be Z, because there has been precedent they've announced a new Pokemon and then not release the next generation. Same thing goes for, the anime with Pokemon the first movie with Meryl and Snubbull and all that. Even Meryl was in the, anime 1.5, the Orange Islands arc, before, Gold and Silver even came out. So it could just be possible that they're teasing the 7th generation way before it's even a reality.
Meryl? Don't you mean Pika Blue?
Pika Blue? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you're back in the 90s.
Yeah. No, I think that makes complete sense. I am also going to throw my hat in the Pokemon Z. It'd be interesting to see if they go for 7th Gen, but that is breaking a tradition that's been around since the first generation.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get one last time.
Black and White 2 kind of served as that.
Do you really count that? I mean, that also broke the mold.
It does, but I also
barely.
think it is. I do think it's like it's sort of a halfway in between because to me that is still 5th gen, you know.
Oh, definitely. But also, it's a different story, and while it does have new additions like the 3rd game in the usual trilogies would be, it's still very, very different than the normal Black and White.
So I guess the question then at this point perhaps is, if this is going to be Pokemon Z, do you expect it, or something along those lines, do you expect it to be more akin to Black and White 2 perhaps, or do you think it might be closer to like Pokemon Yellow or the other earlier games?
That's actually a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they'll probably keep up the new tradition and make it a actual sequel and just go beyond that point. Maybe explore a couple of the themes that they've introduced in X and Y, and maybe they'll go with XZ and YZ.
Oh, no.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
You know, I think you might be right, actually. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route too, just because I would think that'd be more appealing to people who already own the current games, right? Like if it's just a variation of what you already have, big whoop. If it's something that actually offers a a different narrative, I think that is enough to hook people to repurchase a game essentially.
I completely agree, because Black and White 2, while they were actual sequels, they actually had incentive for you to buy stuff. And also, with that really cool system where you could kind of import your data from the previous game and bring it in, that was really well done. And I think that now that we're in a newer era of gaming, I think that getting people to rebuy the same games over and over again is starting to finally phase out now that people are starting to get older and smarter. Because, back in the day, we only had the different versions to encourage trading back and forth.
Right.
Which it was really because you didn't have Wi-Fi and you couldn't trade with anybody around the world. You needed to incentivize people to buy that link cable and do that. But nowadays, that isn't really as much of a big deal. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember when getting fruit in Animal Crossing used to be a huge challenge, and now it's like, whatever.
I don't think it's time for 7th gen yet. I think we're another year out before that. I do think they're probably going to wait for the next system, but I think instead of Z, it's going to be a actual sequel.
So you don't think they'll call it Z then?
Like I said, the closest I think they'll get to that is XZYZ.
How confusing would that be for parents when they're trying to buy the next game?
I don't think Nintendo's ever been concerned about confusing parents.
Oh, no, they haven't. Damn new 3DS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so I don't think that's an issue. They will name it whatever the hell they feel like.
We're going to go right back on to gemstones after this. Pokemon Topaz.
So do you think they might throw in any other brand new games that they might just to throw us completely off?
I mean, that's the only other possibility, I think. It's either going to be Pokemon Z, or it's going to be another big new Pokemon game they haven't talked about yet, or maybe Pokemon Go. I don't think this is quite the time for Pokemon Go. So I expect either Pokemon Z or a game along those lines, or a brand new Pokemon game. But I really am leaning toward more Pokemon Z-ish.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I'd probably expect Pokemon Go to be in a more mobile-focused direct that I feel like they're going to have at some point. Show off the new system, the new Nintendo account system, Meetamo, and perhaps Pokemon Go, and this Mario game they've been teasing for a while too. I feel like that would make a lot of sense as like a Nintendo mobile direct.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely possible. I would actually be surprised if we get I'd be surprised if we get direct for their mobile, for at least Pokemon Go at least. I don't know. It just seems like they are treating their mobile games as a separate thing, but maybe they'll come to an end at some point, because they probably do want to converge those demographics, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think we pretty much covered what the game itself could be, assuming it is a game. But when I went to look back again on how they announced Pokemon X and Y, I wanted to see how else they touched back on those games in the near future. And it looked like, if I'm looking at our history correctly, so they announced Pokemon X and Y in late January, so just about a month and a half before we're getting this new announcement, new Pokemon Direct. And then they didn't touch back on it until April, with, I think, announcing the new version of Mewtwo. They showed it off, I think, in a magazine. And then it wasn't until May that we finally got a new gameplay trailer, which of course built up to E3, where we got, I think, a pretty big blowout. So do you guys expect a similar trajectory here, again, assuming we are getting a game announcement?
I mean, honestly, Nintendo really hasn't built up their E3 presence since they have been focusing more on the Directs, which has been working really well for them. However, it would be breaking away from a huge established Pokemon tradition if they get away from the Koro announcements, which we've already started to see with Zygarde and that other Steel Pokemon.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, if if we're getting whether it's Z or the 7th gen, it's coming out this November. That is a guarantee that's happening with Pokemon. We'll probably get a few more gameplay trailers, core reveals, that sort of thing, up until E3, where they'll probably announce the release date for exact timing, and that's where we'll go. Pokemon is actually kind of predictable when it comes to when they show stuff off.
Well, speaking of which, so that means, I mean, it's coming out this year then, obviously, right? This fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
Well, look at you, Derek.
Hey, I got a year off. I'm happy.
Yeah, that's true. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts about this announcement? I mean, obviously this is the 20th anniversary as well, so I have a feeling they'll devote some time to that. They could tie that into the whole. There is a retrospective section, mentioning, talking about the Virtual Console releases again. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other thoughts about what they might do in this with their precious 5 minutes?
I think if they're going to do a blowout for this one game, I think it'd be huge if they did for this maybe X and Y sequel, if they finally introduced going back to a different region. And the easiest one to do that with would be Hoenn, since they already have all the assets set up from Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. So we might be able to see something like that.
All right, I'm going to give you some 3 crazy predictions that if they come true, I will forever be heralded as a prophet. Here we go.
All right.
Bring it on.
Number 1, Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, Yellow 3D. That's gonna be a thing. We're gonna go back to the originals and we're gonna play them Pokemans for the 30th anniversary. And we're gonna get a shiny Pikachu for the 30th anniversary. Everybody's gonna get that. And the best one, you're going to be able to make Detective Pikachu transferable to your main games.
Wow,
Oh,
those are some pretty crazy predictions.
Well, it's also pretty crazy because you're predicting 10 years in the future with the 30th anniversary.
Oh,
I thought
right.
we were on the 20th.
20th, definitely. Okay, 30th anniversary. It will definitely happen at least then.
Drake doesn't mess around. Drake does not mess around when it comes to his predictions. Yeah, I don't know if any of those will come true, but what do you guys think about the chances of there being a new of them showing off a brand new Pokemon?
I think we'd probably get more of the Steel type than anything else.
Think so?
Either more the Steel type, or they're actually show off all the different forms of Zygarde and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that would be the case.
The mysterious Pokemon Z, right?
Well, except he could be caught in X and Y. It's just that he didn't have those forms.
Yeah, so
that they introduced.
But could he be the box Pokemon, you think?
Probably. I mean, that's what they did with Kyurem.
Right.
He was the 3rd one. They just had combinations.
And
so
his name starts
who
with
knows?
Z.
Yeah.
And his
it's
body is like a snake, right?
Yeah, remember when you did your
I do.
bad fan art?
That was so good. I love that. Might be my favorite. That's like the highlight of my life was my fan art for that. We called that, by the way, 2 years ago now in our
Yeah.
in our analysis.
Oh, no, we totally did.
Well, I mean, granted, this is assuming it is Pokemon Z. It may not be, in which case we're completely wrong. So we'll see. We will see.
Yep.
But I guess we didn't know the Pokemon at least, the Pokemon itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was more talking about.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts? Any more crazy predictions, or are we done here?
Nah, I'm good.
Trailer Drake or Comic Drake, where can people find you at?
I am Trailer Comic Drake. You can find me at trailerdrake.com or comicdrake.com. They take it to my YouTube channels because I'm too lazy to spell it all out.
Awesome. So yeah, you can click on them in the description. It'll take you right there. Doesn't matter how lazy you are. It's pretty simple. All right, guys. And of course, thanks for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which is a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for more on whatever this game ends up being. Maybe Pokemon Z, maybe something else, and definitely we'll be covering whatever it is. And of course, other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.